fresh date loaf, or nut loaf as some people call it, spread thickly with butter is one of life's simple pleasures. And even a few days later, toasted and buttered, it's still absolutely delicious. I've tweaked my mum's old recipe slightly over the years because while it was lovely, I sometimes found it just a touch dry. This version slices really well, it tastes wonderful, and it works excellent gluten-free. You can bake it in a loaf tin, or if you happen to have a couple of those old-fashioned roll tins tucked away somewhere, they work beautifully too. Now, because I've tweaked this recipe so much, I weighed everything. I've got 175 grams of dates here, which I've just cut up into small pieces. Now, this is a 250 ml cup, and so that equates to a heaped cup of chopped dates. And I just place these into a bowl, and I've got 60 grams of butter here, which is 3 tablespoons, just soft butter. And I sprinkle over 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda. Then I pour over 250 ml of boiling water and give that a stir. And I'm going to set this aside for 30 minutes. And what that will do is soften the dates and the butter will be melted. And I'll do that all again because I'm making 2 batches today. I've got my folks visiting next month for a few weeks and they'll love this, and this freezes really well. And I want to show you what it looks like both in the loaf tin and in the roll tins. Walnuts are delicious in this loaf and they're traditional. However, if you don't like walnuts, you can change it to another nut, or if you don't want any nuts at all, put more dates in. However, these are yum. So I've got 115 grams here that I've just roughly chopped. You don't want them, crushed, but because the texture in it when you eat it is just lovely. And that equates to a good 250 ml cup of chopped walnuts, and I'll set them aside. So this is a loaf tin and I've filled it with water just to measure it, and it's 6 cups, 1500 ml capacity. And you know what? These are my bread tins I use to bake bread in, and it's deceiving, but they're the same capacity as this loaf tin here. So I'm going to use this loaf tin today. And I have these 2 very old tins that are just traditionally for this date and nut loaf. And you know how old they are? They are made in Australia. And unfortunately, you don't see that too often these days. And whatever you're using, grease it well. And you can just use spray oil, but I like to use butter and flour. Rub the butter all in them. And I usually do this over the sink, but because I'm making a video and it's easier, I'll show you here. I just put a little bit of flour in all my buttered tins and just dust the flour where the butter is. And they look pretty good to me. Now, I think my mum's recipe used to have just the 1 egg, but the 2 eggs add a little richness and it makes it less dry. And you just want to lightly beat them with a fork. So I'm making 2 batches today. This one is the gluten-free one and the other one will be non-gluten-free. And this has been resting for half an hour now, and the dates are softened and all the butter is melted. And then I add 150 grams of brown sugar, which equates to like a loosely packed cup of sugar, the 2 lightly beaten eggs, the chopped walnuts, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And in this bowl I have 2 cups of plain flour, gluten-free plain flour actually, 300 grams. And to it I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And what really helps with the gluten-free one is a half a teaspoon of xanthan gum. A tiny pinch of salt. And for this batch I'm going to use the ginger spice and put 1 teaspoon of ginger in. Or you could use mixed spice or cinnamon or nutmeg or nothing at all. Then I sift it into that date mixture. Now, any gluten-free batter really benefits from just a short rest before it goes in the oven, like 5 to 10 minutes, that's all. So I'm going to give it a good stir, and my gluten-free one will go in the loaf tin, and pour it into the loaf tin, and I'll let that rest while I get the non-gluten-free one done. Exactly like the gluten-free one, 2 cups of regular flour, and this one I'm going to do a teaspoon of mixed spice, a heaped teaspoon. And you only want to fill these up halfway because they will rise right up to the top. They're pretty even. Now put the lids on. And I'm going to put them in the oven, and I'll put them all in together, and then I'll check on these in 30 minutes, maybe 35 minutes. So that's 35 minutes. The gluten-free one is not quite done, I can feel it, but I'm just going to cover it with a bit of baking paper so it doesn't brown anymore, and I'll check on that one in about, 5 minutes. Oh, that's cooked, I can tell by just touching it. If I put a skewer right in it, it comes out clean. Now I'm going to leave these in the tin just for 10 minutes, just to cool down a bit, and then I'll get them out of their tin. But they're both risen right to the top, and my kitchen smells beautiful. So it's been 10 minutes, and now I'm going to get these out of the tin. They're still a bit hot to touch. Oh, beautiful. And that's the gluten-free one. That actually took 50 minutes. But if I put a skewer in, it comes out perfectly clean. And I'll leave that for 10 minutes to rest in the tin before I turn it out. Now, even though I can't eat this one because it's not gluten-free, I want to show you how it cuts. And it's still warm, like it's only been out of the oven 20 minutes. But you'd like to cut it, you know, an inch thick or something, and look at that. The only way, in my opinion, to serve it is with slatherings of butter. And now the gluten-free one, like it's been resting all of about 3 minutes. Because I chop a lot of onions, I'll put a bit of baking paper down so the loaf doesn't have an onion taste. It's very, very, very fresh. And that's the gluten-free one. That's beautiful. What I love about this is that it's moist. It's not at all dry. This is just so yum and easy and beautiful gluten-free. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy this recipe if you make it, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.